Hi there, and welcome to the Play Therapy Circle. Before we begin, please note this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not provide therapeutic advice, and listening does not create a client-therapist relationship. All views expressed are my own, and any case examples shared have been de-identified to protect privacy. If you're seeking personal support, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional in your area. Hi, and welcome to an episode of the Play Therapy Circle. I'm Kylie Ellison, a therapist, clinical supervisor, and play therapy trainer, and I'm so grateful you're here. This podcast is a space for thoughtful, soulful conversations about child-centered therapy, play-based work, and what it means to show up with presence and compassion, both for our clients and for ourselves. Whether you're a seasoned play therapist, a student just starting out, or someone deeply passionate about working with children, you belong here. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Play Therapy Circle podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ellison, and I am so glad you are here. Hello everyone, happy Tuesday. For any of you who have been following along, you know that I am trying to commit to doing this earlier in the week so that I can get organized. So I am super grateful that I have done it this week because it's a new week. How are all of you doing? How are you doing? How is your week going? How are you traveling in the playroom? I had 6 client sessions today in the playroom, so I had the opportunity to connect with 6 beautiful, incredible kids in the playroom. So I have had a fantastic day, and I think it's a really good day for me to be doing a podcast episode when the playroom is fresh in my mind in terms of my appreciation and deep gratitude for what I do each and every day. I often say to myself, I can't believe this is my job, that I genuinely get to sit and connect, and not only just sit and connect, but really be able to use all of my skills in CCPT, but more importantly than anything else, the connection and relationship that I get to build with each of the clients that I work with and their families is so special, so special. So I'm so grateful. Hey, as some of you may know who follow me along in my podcast journey so far, to date, the episodes have been very much focused on helping support our play therapists and our play therapy community. So in light of it being January 2026, in light of it being a couple of weeks before all of our kids in Brisbane go back to school, because we are approaching that returning to school period of the start of the year, I wanted to do a few episodes. So I'm going to call it a mini series. I really probably should have thought this through more. I'm really kind of talking on the fly here, but I have some topics that I would like to do that relate to helping therapists explain play therapy to potentially new families or current families. Why I'm saying that is often for many play therapists, and I'm talking again to Brisbane, I want to clarify the context of the information I'm about to provide, that at the start of the year, in January, the end of January, our kids go back to school. So it's often a time for private practice and for play therapists to either start new clients where you might have finished over just before Christmas and then had the Christmas New Year break, and now you're receiving referrals in your practice for the start of the year. There will often be referrals that we will receive once kids start school and maybe are having trouble or difficulties. So I wanted to have some topics, some episodes that would be able to be shared with parents, or that parents would be able to listen along to, that will just support understanding and help spread the word about child-centered play therapy and help support both our parents and our therapists. So if you are a parent joining the podcast and listening to this episode, welcome. welcome. It is so lovely to have you. We are so incredibly supportive and inclusive in our Play Therapy Circle community because we acknowledge that play therapy lives everywhere and that we have so many incredible play therapists and supporters and parents and families out there. So if you are joining as a parent, you are so welcome here. I want to spend today's episode, and the topic that I've decided on is, what is child-centered play therapy and how does it help my child? So I also want to declare being a play therapist and a parent myself. So for those of you parents joining who don't know, I have at the moment a 12 and a 13-year-old. So I will often refer to being in the trenches of parenting. So I want to normalize challenges that happen along the way in parenting because we all go through it. I want to be as authentic and congruent as I can because that is our core tenets of CCPT. So I'm going to be honest and transparent here about my own experience and the challenges that we as parents face as well. So hopefully this will be a really helpful episode that you might be able to share with parents as a therapist, or parents can listen to as well, or just helping therapists to have some of that language to explain child-centered play therapy, especially if you're beginning in the profession. So I want to acknowledge for our parent listeners that you often may be feeling pretty worried or anxious about your child and how they're going. You might be carrying lots of questions or being slightly hesitant about starting therapy. Like I said, I myself work in private practice. I'm coming up to 10 years in a couple of weeks. Our practice is going to celebrate its 10th birthday of delivering child-centered play therapy services in the Redlands and beyond. So I am super excited. So I will talk about that more in the next episode. But getting back on topic. So having worked as a child-centered play therapist for the last 10 years, working in the child protection and disability space for the last 20 years, I know that there can often be hesitation, questions, wonderings around how play therapy works. So this episode is for you, and certainly for those therapists also listening who want to explain it to parents. So what I want to talk about in the next couple of episodes is really wanting to do some episodes to help parents and caregivers who want to understand CCPT. So this episode and the next few are for you. I want to, as I said, offer language to therapists as well who might be struggling to communicate that. But I just want to clarify, just before we get started, that obviously this isn't parenting training. This is not a parenting manual. We're not going to be analyzing play. This is purely informational. This is a space of understanding to share all about child-centered play therapy and how it helps children heal through play, and a place to slow down and make sense of how therapy and especially child-centered play therapy works. So if you are listening and you don't know anything about child-centered play therapy, you're totally fine. That's totally fine. Listen on. We've got you. You don't need to do anything differently yet. And this is just about understanding. It's not about fixing or changing. This is really about sharing as much information as we can about child-centered play therapy. So welcome and let's dive in. Hey, so I want to start off and acknowledge along the way that I'm going to be talking to parents. So I will try and caveat that if I'm talking to different audiences in this podcast. But I'll also interchangeably use my own experience as both a play therapist and a parent. So hopefully we can all follow along together. But what do I want to talk about today? So why parents often ask, but what is play therapy? Like, what actually is it? So many parents imagine therapy as talking about problems. That isn't uncommon because often in our community expectations around therapy, what we traditionally know about therapy is talk-based. So I really want to normalize that potential preconception that parents might have, is that I'm bringing my child to therapy to talk to someone. That's totally fine. I'm going to unpack why child-centered play therapy is most definitely a very effective, evidence-based, research-based approach to working with children, but how using play is often far more effective than talk-based work with children. So we're going to get into that. Oftentimes parents expect that their children will be taught some sort of skill-based, coping skills to navigate life. That can be part of a parent's expectation when they're engaging a therapist. And that adults asking direct questions is part of the delivery of intervention as well. So it can be really confusing when parents are inquiring about child-centered play therapy or play therapy in general, and are understanding in the beginning that it might be sounding like children just playing. That is a very, very common understanding of play therapy and child-centered play therapy. So again, if you're a parent listening and when you're reading, I guess, information about play therapy, or you're listening to a play therapist talk about it, and in the back of your mind, you're kind of like, but that just sounds like play. That is so common as a beginning misconception of child-centered play therapy. So I'm really keen to debunk that and help provide that information to better understand. But that is common, that it just often to parents sounds like play. So they don't talk about home or school. So it can be really confusing when they don't do that. So naming that fear of how can playing instead of talking help my child? And that's a very valid question. You are a parent, you are concerned about your child, you want the best for your child, and you want the best service for your child, right? So you want to understand exactly how this works, and that's completely understandable. So let's talk a little bit about what child-centered play therapy is all about. And I want to give, I guess, a little caveat here with my own professional background, that one of the reasons why I went searching for a alternative to talk-based therapy for kids was I was working in intervention roles, both in government and non-government, where I was using directive approaches and really not getting the outcomes that I was seeking as a professional. And it was becoming frustrating. I wasn't a parent at that time, but I was really wanting to understand, I guess, and navigate better how to better reach children. And so I found a little bit later child-centered play therapy, and I've never looked back. And so my kids were little when I found child-centered play therapy. So unfortunately, my kids, because I use child-centered play therapy in my everyday language everywhere, are also little mini play therapists in the making because they use my language because we've been using it for so long. So I want to give that encouragement and support to parents who have little ones who are kind of thinking about child-centered play therapy and how this might work. That can also be something that you learn, and that's called filial therapy. We won't talk about that today, but there is a program where it can teach parents how to use play therapy with their own children at home. So I don't want to overwhelm parents. So let's get back to the basics. But child-centered play therapy really is all about a relationship-based therapy. So one of the things that parents often say to me when they refer and connect with me is that their child struggled to build a connection with their previous therapist. And that's not uncommon either, and that's completely fine. There is situations where there's matching and mismatching. Those things happen in the therapeutic context, and it is so important that parents are empowered to know how informed consent works and freedom of choice. And so finding the best and right fit for you and your child is absolutely essential. So it's very important that you feel like your child can connect and build a working relationship with the therapist that you enlist for help. So child-centered play therapy is deeply based in taking the time, investing in building a therapeutic alliance and relationship with the child, and it works throughout the journey. What I want to explain to parents is that child-centered play therapy isn't just about working with your child, it's about the therapist connecting and working with you too. A good child-centered play therapist will work holistically with the system. So they will work with the parents, work with stakeholders, so schools, allied health, doctors, whoever is involved, and you give permission as a parent to do so. there is that opportunity for your play therapist to work holistically. So it's very important that your play therapist in that initial consultation explains how they work, and that you will be kept updated and involved with regular ongoing parent consultations so you can provide feedback, ask questions, review goals. There is so much about the parent being involved in the process as well. So if you've had an experience prior with a therapist that hasn't necessarily involved and supported you along the way, alongside the work that they've been doing with your child, it's really important to make sure that you feel that inclusion in that delivery of services. So it's very much CCPT is developmentally appropriate. It's designed specifically and developmentally for children. So it is a mode of delivery of intervention that honors the different developmental stages of children, and that specifically children communicate through play the way adults communicate with words. Let me say that again for you. So children communicate through play the way adults communicate through words. So sometimes when we explain that to parents, it does give a little bit of an aha moment, because oftentimes either they've tried or other therapists have tried to use talk-based work in engaging with their child and haven't really gotten very far. And the reason for that is often kids struggle to put words to their feelings. They struggle to put words to their experiences or to be able to recall it or be able to detail it. But they absolutely can do it fantastically through play. They can do it to the T of everything that happened to them, the emotions that they felt, how it went for them in terms of their family situation or dynamics, absolutely to the core. They can talk through in play. So as a play therapist, I'm trained to understand that play, to be able to interpret it, and to be able to communicate updates to you. So that's my job as a play therapist, to be, I guess, kind of that conduit between the child and the parent. So we recognize that children will use play to process their feelings, process their experiences, and they are always trying to work towards a resolution. Because in our approach to child-centered play therapy, we believe in the potential of every child and family that we connect with if given a supportive space to do so. So we acknowledge, and there's a term for this, so I don't want to lose any parents, but if you've ever heard of the self-actualization principle, it's this idea of, in our philosophy of practice, that clients are always trying to work towards a better version of themselves. They actually don't want to feel frustrated. They don't want to feel depressed. They don't want to feel angry. They actually want to feel better. And so we want to provide that supportive space to help them do that. So we acknowledge that children can't use words to do that, but they can do it through play. So here comes play therapy and why it's so important. So our role as the therapist is to provide a safe, consistent space. We know if we don't provide that space to support kids, they won't feel that sense of trust to be vulnerable and open up about the big tough stuff. So that investment in establishing that relationship first is key. So you might hear your play therapist in your first catch up with them after you've had a few sessions say, I've spent time building a relationship with your child and we've established that, or we're still working towards that. That's really important that you understand what that means as a parent. So I'm going to do a separate episode on stages in play therapy to explain to parents, but just to give you that reassurance, the beginning work that play therapists do with children is really establishing that consistency and safe and trusting space. It's very important that we're following the child's lead. The child innately knows what they need to talk about and where they need to go. I wholeheartedly can say that anecdotally as a play therapist of practice over the last 10 years. The amount of kids where we have, as a collective between the therapist and the parent, established those goals of therapy at the beginning of our work, and then I've started working with the child, and that agenda has shifted significantly, and I've been able to go back to the parent to explain what might be some of the other elements that the child is struggling with and give more context. It's incredible how children will tell us what they need to tell us about their problem or their issue. So letting them take the lead is absolutely critical. If I went in with my agenda of what I thought they needed to be taught or what they needed to discuss, I miss the child. So if I bring in the agenda, I miss connecting with and understanding at a core level what's happening for the child, because it's my agenda, it's not the child's. So we respond with warmth, acceptance, and emotional understanding. So we can be that independent person from your family, from the stakeholder group, that can offer a safe space for kids to talk through play, what's going on for them. So what is CCPT not? So it's not behavior management. I need to kind of clarify that. It's especially for some of us working in Australia in, say, the NDIS space, it's really important to acknowledge child-centered play therapy is not positive behavior support. It's not behavior management. It's not teaching lessons, and it's not direct problem solving. It's very much about emotional expression, meaning making, healing through the relationship, and healing through play. That's what it is. So how does child-centered play therapy help children to heal and grow? If that's what it is, how does it work? So how does it go into real-time, I guess, goals, outcomes, tangible, measurable intentions, I guess, when we are connecting with a therapist and asking them to work with our child? So what can we do and what can we help in child-centered play therapy to support the child? We help to develop emotional regulation skills. So to break that down a little bit more, what a play therapist often does is uses a skill called reflecting feelings. So when play therapists use reflecting feelings, it provides an opportunity for children to understand both unconsciously and consciously what a particular emotion is. So in effect, we're helping children to be able to build their emotional literacy, but we're also able to support emotional regulation through co-regulation, through us regulating ourselves and helping to support regulate the child. So what happens is when we're able to do that and we're able to help support regulate a child in the playroom, to help them, in simple terms, to remain calm in the playroom. So if your child is struggling with big emotions, big feelings, one of the ways we can help do that is communicating that acceptance, that understanding, and reflecting feelings to validate how they're feeling and to help de-escalate them. So when we can do that through that action-orientated experience, because we know kids developmentally need to move. They can't sit still and just talk to someone. They are on the go. They need to move. I just did 6 sessions today. Like, I know. I really have moved today. Like, I have made my steps today as a play therapist because I was running in that playroom. So kids need to move to learn. They can't sit still. So if they have this opportunity to play it out through an action-orientated and experiential experience, they can establish a new way of being able to connect with others outside. So what we find and what's incredible about this work is kids will workshop ideas, they'll play out ideas, they'll trial different ways of doing things, and once they've established that, they start using those skills outside of play therapy. Because why? Child-centered play therapy is a relationship-based therapy. So what happens is they learn in that relationship between myself as the therapist and the child, and they generalize it to the outside world, because eventually it's not just about myself and the client. They take those skills to all of their relationships. So they learn through that one relationship with me, and then they take it outside and use it with everyone else. It's incredible. It's amazing. And kids don't intentionally do this either. I want to preface to parents. There is no thought process where kids go, okay, well, I've learned how to manage my big feelings with Kylie, so now I'm going to try and manage my big feelings with my teacher in the classroom. None of that happens in their brain. They just don't have that capacity yet to do that. But they have that experience, that relationship with me, where they're able to build those skills so that they can gently and effectively take them outside of the play therapy space and use them in other contexts. So we help them to build confidence and self-trust. In play therapy, there is a term called returning responsibility. It's a big one. So I want to connect with parents who are listening right now who may have a child who can't do things for themselves. So if you are struggling with your child who becomes upset, becomes frustrated, angry, defers to you or to another family member to do things for them, can't do things for themselves. There is a term in child-centered play therapy now, I don't want to lose anyone, but there is a term called learned helplessness. So we use that in our therapy work to talk about a child who, through repeated experiences, the same way that they have repeated experiences in the playroom and they learn those new skills with us, they can in other settings also have these repeated experiences where they learn how the world works. And one of those things could be that if over repetition they've learnt that if they dig their heels in and they refuse to do something and they become, say, upset or cry or become angry, that others will do it for them. And so they stop doing things for themselves. So what I want to say in this space when I'm talking about some of the benefits of CCPT is one of the ways that we build confidence in kids is returning responsibility. So in the playroom, my job is not to do anything for the child unless it's outside of their developmental stage, which is a whole other conversation. But generally speaking, if it's something that is within the developmental expectations of a child to do, so if I have a 10-year-old who can't pick colors to draw a picture, I'm not going to pick that color for them. What we're going to do is return responsibility to build their confidence, their capacity, their self-direction, their self-responsibility. Because in play therapy, we believe that those skills can't be taught, it needs to be learned through experience. So I'm trained to sit in the uncomfortable with kids until they're able to do it. So if they become upset and frustrated, I'm going to use my reflecting feeling skills to help validate their feelings, but also hold those boundaries. So this is where I'm going to put my parent hat on now, because I want to talk to parents who maybe have a family context where both parents work. Maybe you guys both work full time and you're time pressured. You have maybe a couple of kids, 2 or 3 kids, and they're school aged or they're daycare school aged, and you need to get them to school and to daycare and you need to get to work. And so when we have one of our kids who is refusing to put their school shoes on and you need to be in the car because you need to be at work in the next half an hour and you need to get everyone going, like we've had, breakfast, we've gotten dressed, we've packed our school lunches, we've packed our bags, we've brushed our hair, we've cleaned our teeth, and we are literally trying to get into the car, and you have one of your kiddos who is refusing to put their shoe on. I just want to validate and normalize that you may not have the time to be able to sit there for 45 minutes while you are trying to get your child in the car. So if you are struggling with this, that is part of why you would engage a child-centered play therapist to help support you through that. Because parents now more than ever are flat out, overschedulized, struggling, time poor. All of those things are so relevant to parents right now. And so I want to remove any of that guilt or shame that any parents might feel around not being able to give as much time as you would like to help support build those skills for your child. This is the reality of working and needing to run a household. I believe, as far as I'm aware, what I have read is that we are one of the first generations, and I'm going to say it to all my parents listening, geriatric millennial parents. If you're out there, if you're a millennial parent, I see you. I totally see you. We are one of the first generations that is trying to run a household and hold down a job. We are also part of a parent cohort where we are trying to work through our own experiences growing up and parent in a different way our own kids. So there is so many pressures, so many challenges with parenting in modern day. So I just want to really normalize that and help support you in looking for a way of being able to support kids that, and your child in particular, that will address some of those challenges that you're experiencing. So if that is you, if you identify with that concept of learned helplessness, you are not alone. Definitely not. So what else can we help in child-centered play therapy with? Expression of big or confusing or intense feelings. So what we do in child-centered play therapy is we have another term called limit setting. So that's really important because we are very conscious in child-centered play therapy of role modeling a socially acceptable relationship, as one of the pioneers in child-centered play therapy, Gary Landreth, would say. So it's very important that we are upholding our professional ethics, our code of conduct, our ethical guidelines, as well as our professional practice. So it's important that kids have an opportunity to be able to express feelings that they have inside them that they need to release. So we often talk about child-centered play therapy, because it's play-based, providing an opportunity for kids to process cathartically big feelings, which is great. That's what helps children. So we want to provide that opportunity, but we will also put limits in to make sure that they're safe. So we have a basic rule of thumb, because it obviously goes into a lot more detail, but I want to just share the basics with parents, that it's all about making sure that I'm safe, that the child is safe, and the room and the toys are safe. So as long as that's the case and it's within that socially acceptable relationship, they are feelings that we will allow the child to express and process. So we have resources in the room to do that. So we have punching bags, we have a giant teddy. I've actually got with my punching bag, I got it from Kmart, so it's fantastic. I have looked so many times for different resources, and the one from Kmart is amazing, but it has targets on it and like an inflatable glove, so kids can punch it and they can let out those feelings in a safe and supported and therapeutic way. So we would never let them do anything that's not acceptable outside of play therapy, but we also wouldn't let them do anything that would not be okay in terms of safety. So we're always making sure that they are safe in the playroom. So we also help them to process and talk through, without having to use any words, experiences that are really tough for them. So in play therapy, they don't need to use any words to talk about some of those traumatic experiences that maybe they have been through. So we help them do that with the resources we have in the room. We really want to promote with kids a sense of being understood and accepted. So when we are connecting and building that relationship, it is an ongoing process of that safety, trust, and we have key tenets. So these are our key principles or our core beliefs in child-centered play therapy, that we provide congruence. So we are authentic. We are who we are transparent to kids, and truly kids and parents value that when we're authentic. We're congruent. We have deep empathy for everyone involved, including parents and children, and unconditional positive regard. They're the three kind of key core beliefs of child-centered play therapists. So when we do that, we're able to help children to feel that sense of being understood and accepted. So change happens from the inside out. It's not kind of the other way around, where we're trying to teach them things. We want them to be able to have that self-insight, to be able to develop strategies and skills that resonate for them, as opposed to things that I'm teaching them. And we believe that when children feel safe, growth follows naturally. It's not something that needs to be forced or pushed. So what can this look like in terms of how play therapy works? So oftentimes, and what happens in child-centered play therapy after our initial kind of couple of sessions where we've set, I guess, those expectations, we have a welcome statement that we use with kids. Once kids have gotten into that routine, it's very much welcoming them into the space and allowing them to set the agenda. But what happens is, because kids innately want to move towards feeling better and they want to talk about the things through play that are bothering them, we often see repetitive play. We'll see kids express big emotions. We might see them actually be quite quiet and withdrawn, or they might use overt or covert ways to test boundaries. And we will definitely see shifts over time And we're able to, in our ongoing parent consults, provide you updates along the way about that. But there is no right way for a child to play. Every child is unique. Every experience they have is unique, and their feelings are unique. So we're not looking for clues, and we're certainly working at their pace because they take the lead. So why or what do parents often worry about? Why do parents worry about potentially using child-centered play therapy if you're still trying to understand what it's all about? And what do you often worry about the most? So here are some of those common questions. So, shouldn't my child talk about what's wrong? Again, we're acknowledging for kids that their natural mode of communication is play. So their preference is always to use play first and then talking maybe second. So I often say when I first meet for the first consultation, before I start working with the child, when I meet with a parent, I'll say to them, it is very likely that the play that I see in the playroom, you will most likely be seeing a version of that at home, because play and how kids talk doesn't just live in the playroom. It lives everywhere. It lives in the playground. It lives in their classroom. It lives in their bedroom. It lives in their playroom if they've got a playroom at home. It lives everywhere. So when we understand how they talk through play, we can understand what they're telling us. So it's putting sometimes an adult lens on a child's perspective when it comes to being able to talk about difficult things. We as adults are potentially expecting them to be able to talk when their preference is to play it out. So will they learn skills? Absolutely, is my response to that. But it's not going to be necessarily in the way that you may have seen in other interventions. They learn through play, through playing it out, through playing it repetitively, through being supported by the therapist to move towards resolution, to be able to develop in that relationship and test out and troubleshoot new skills. They do that in that relationship with me as the therapist, so then they can start using it outside of the playroom. So yes, they absolutely learn skills, just not in a directive talk-based way. How long will this take? I have learnt over the last 10 years that it is absolutely impossible to be able to pinpoint and guess exactly how many sessions a child's going to need. So I absolutely do not offer any kind of number to parents in an initial consultation. So why do I say that? Because I want to make sure that I'm not setting myself up to fail as the play therapist, but I also don't want to set up the child to fail if we give expectations of this is how many sessions they're going to need. I often, in talking to parents, want to, help build that parallel understanding of maybe their own experience of going to therapy as an adult, or their understanding of how therapy works for adults, that we don't necessarily put a number to adults when they go to adult counselling or adult talk-based therapy. So we can't do that with children either. Children innately know how long they need to be there, and so our responsibility as the play therapist is to keep the parent updated and informed of how much longer it's going to need. How will I know it's working? I mean, that's a great question, because you as the parent are investing your time, your resources, and your commitment to this approach. And so you want to know that it's going to be progressive and you're going to see shifts and changes. One of the first ways that you will notice if it's working is if you start to see a shift in your child at home or at school. So oftentimes I will have feedback from parents that will say, Johnny, my son, is starting to feel or starting to seem a little bit more settled at school. It's not a massive yay, they've achieved their goal. It's often very subtle and slow, but you'll just start to see some softening, some de-escalation of some of those challenging behaviors, whatever it is related to the goal of the child. It's very hard, to kind of put definitive indicators, of progress. It's going to be unique for each child, but it will be in relation to the goals that you set with your play therapist in the beginning, that if you start to see a shift or a progression towards that, that's a great indicator that play therapy is working. It's very important if you feel like you are not sure that progress is happening, that your child might be stuck, to reach out to your play therapist. I welcome, any opportunity I can to talk about play therapy. You can only imagine. But I think it is important that we are transparent in our practice. So as play therapists, being able to offer that transparency, to be able to provide those updates, to explain the progress that's occurring, very important. So I want to normalize, if you've had some of these questions that I've just talked about, and it's been kind of your wonderings, your questions come from care and love. And I say that as a parent. They come from a space that you just love your child and want the absolute best for them. We all do as parents. So those questions are important for you to ask if you feel like you're still unsure or you need clarification. I definitely want to unpack further. I've had to keep stopping myself, if you've noticed. I want to dive into so many topics as we've been talking. So we will definitely unpack further aspects of child-centered play therapy to help support and educate parents to have a sense of understanding. But just like we do with children, I want to offer you as parents that empowerment and confidence in child-centered play therapy, because that's important that you feel when you connect with your play therapist that they've got this, that they know what they're doing, and that they've got a plan to support you. That's very important and so much a core part of child-centered play therapy. So what might be some of the topics that we'll cover in the next couple of episodes? I want to talk to parents about what progress in child-centered play therapy looks like, so that you can have an understanding of what that might be all about. Why therapists don't correct kids in session, for example, how CCPT supports so many different presenting issues and skill development, including emotional regulation, and how parents can support therapy without feeling that pressure or feeling that urgency. So I hope that this episode, it was really, I guess, an intention to be able to share this information with more families in the communities that we support. We are in something like 38 countries now across the globe. Our podcast reaches. So I really hope that this is a podcast that might be helpful and useful, not just for Australian play therapists, but internationally. And I really want to send, I guess, that empathy and understanding to parents about how tough it is right now to parent. It is so challenging for so many reasons. So I just want to normalize those struggles and challenges that you might be feeling and facing as well, and why play therapy can offer that safe space for kids and also offer that educational support for you as well. So if you're considering play therapy, you're not behind. You're not behind. You're right where you should be. You found us. You found our podcast. So that's amazing. Seeking understanding is showing how supportive you already are as a parent. So that is amazing. And your child doesn't need to be fixed. They just need to be understood. So maybe in other contexts and other interventions, they just haven't had that opportunity to connect at that deeper level where that therapist can truly understand what's happening for the child. So I am excited to do the next couple of episodes speaking to parents and connecting with parents. So for therapists and parents listening, I hope that this episode has been helpful and useful to you. Thank you so much for being here. I love talking about play therapy, as child-centered play therapy, as I'm sure you can tell. So please reach out if you've got questions. We are on social media, so you can catch us on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. And we are called the Play Therapy Circle Podcast. So look us up. We're happy for you to follow along. We post our episodes every week on there and short clips as well. So we are starting to post some short videos about child-centered play therapy as well. So you might want to check us out on our social media. We're on Apple and Spotify and YouTube as well. So anyone that is watching this video right now on YouTube, hello. So reach out to us. Feel free to email us if you've got questions about this episode or just want more information. hello@playtherapycircle.com. That's our email. we welcome the chance to connect with you all. So we will keep this conversation going next week with more topics, helping support parents and helping to share this information for therapists as well. Thank you so much for being here. I love to say at the end of every episode to take care of yourself and each other. I think that's so relevant now more than ever. So please, please, please look after yourself and each other. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And like I said, next week, we're going to continue the conversation, but I am also super excited about our practice birthday. So I've got to obviously share about that along the way as well. So all fun things coming up in the weeks ahead. So thank you so much for your support. Please look after yourself and each other. Go well, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of the Play Therapy Circle. If anything resonated with you today, I'd love it if you could follow the podcast, share it with a colleague, or leave a short review. It really helps others find our circle. And if you have a topic or question you'd love me to explore, I'd love to hear from you. This space is for you, and I want it to feel like a conversation. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, you belong here.